Welcome to Issues of Contemporary Politics with Dr. Brovkin. I apologize, my dear subscribers and the guests to this channel, that I was silent for about 2 weeks. At first I was on vacation, but then when I got home, I discovered there is no internet in my house. There's somebody cut the wires and they're still working at it. So I'm improvising and trying to stay in touch, but it's gonna take another week until everything is resolved. What I'd like to talk today about is China and Russia. In view of the recent visit of President Putin to China and the new reality which was announced, and some reflections on this new reality, whether it actually is so, and what the dimensions of this new reality of a multipolar world are. Now, those who promote the idea of a multipolar world, some enthusiastic about the Russian new Chinese partnership, they call it even an alliance. Now, so what is it? Is it an alliance? Is it a marriage of convenience? Or is it something else? Is it fragmentation of world order? Is it emergence of new types of relationships between various major great powers? These are some of the things that I'd like to discuss today. Now, obviously, we start with the declaration of President Putin and President Xi, which announced the multipolar world. Reading it attentively, what is essentially clear is that it is a declaration of intent to create a new multipolar world. It is a declaration to create a new multipolar world. And in this world, in this declaration, Putin and Xi focus on two things. What's important for China is the terminology of hegemony. They are against what they call US hegemony in the world. What is important for Russia is the expansion of military blocs and the violation of international law, obviously referring to the recent attack on Iran and the murder of its leaders. So these are the two principles that the new multipolar world is supposed to observe. However, if we look attentively at the Russian-China relationship in this new multipolar world, it does appear to be immediately, quite strikingly so, that it is one-dimensional. It is in the direction of China. Russia and China trade is 250 billion, as opposed to 1 trillion trade between the United States and China. So Russia's trade is 5 times smaller, and the structure of it is almost completely, almost entirely Chinese purchases of Russian oil and gas. Now, if it were a real partnership, where is the bilateral trade? What are the flows of Chinese goods into Russia? And then there are not many. In fact, the surplus is in favor of the Russians. In other words, they're not buying enough Chinese products. But what they do buy, it's essentially cars and chips and some other high-tech items, not even covering 250 billion of their oil sales. So if we look at the direct investment, it is pitiful. It is ridiculously small. It's only 4 billion of Chinese direct investment into Russia. Now, obviously, it's not. It's a little bit more than Chinese investment into Germany, 1.2, or to France, less than $1 billion. What it shows actually that China is not in any hurry to engage in direct investment with its major partners, trade partners. It needs the European Union as a market for its consumer goods and cars and other items, and the same thing with the United States. It needs the United States primarily as a market for just about everything and anything sold in America made in China. So where does it put Russia? Why is that a multipolar world? Well, it is a multipolar world in a sense that compared to the previous age, there are indeed various centers of power in various dimensions. So if we look at the Cold War period, as we all know, in all dimensions, military, economic, and cultural, it was the Atlantic world that was dominating the world. It was absolute US and European economic, military, and cultural dominance. Now, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, what historians call happened is a unipolar moment, and that is from about 1991 to 2015-20, when China is growing economically to challenge the United States, and when Russia was recovering and becoming a military power comparable to what the Soviet Union used to be, number two, and in some respects number one. And in culture too, there is divergence of various, there's not one dominating area of cultural radiance. It is now much more multipolar and diverse in various countries, having their own cinema, their own songs, their own culture, and the Western music does not dominate as it used to. So in various aspects, we have indeed a multipolarity. But if we look more attentively, what is becoming clear is that in economic terms, the power is shifting to the east. Some economists say that in GDP and in the rate of innovation and in the computers and in military technology, China has already surpassed the United States. Now, even if it didn't, it is still it is a parity. Let's put it this way. If we look at military affairs, then in terms of strategic weapons and hypersonic missiles and nuclear weapons, Russia is equal or superior by some analysis to the United States, because it does have hypersonic missiles and the United States does not. It does have all spectrum of sophisticated new weaponry that is equal or superior to that of the United States. Now, if we look at the military power in continental armies, then it is China that is by far superior than anyone else, because it can field several million, 10 million, if need be 20 million army, backed by hard industry, by the industrial base that can supply and provide for it in all kinds of weaponry that is equal to anything the West can produce. So the multipolarity shows itself in that in economic matters, in military matters, there is no longer one dominant in one field. Different countries dominate various aspects of power, and that is indeed the multipolarity, which essentially means that everyone wants to be number one for itself. America is number one for America. China wants to be number one for China. Russia wants to become a great power again. Everybody wants to be great again. That is the new reality. The rift between the United States and Europe, the rifts in NATO, are of historical dimension because Europe is no longer that important for the United States. Its challenge and major competitor is China, and therefore Europe is taking the second place. The same thing for Russia. There is a profound historical divorce between Russia and Europe, caused primarily by the Ukraine war, but it started actually before that. It is cultural in many ways. It's Russian preference for conservative traditional family values and other aspects, which I discuss in my book From Lenin to Putin. But essentially, it is a divorce with Europe. It is the sanctions of Europe against Russia that push Russia towards China. But again, the Chinese are looking at Russia and at Putin, trying very hard to sell its oil on the world markets and diversify its markets, looking at Putin vying Trump in order to restore what he calls normal relations and trade with the United States. And they see that it is not an alliance, it is a partnership at best, but everyone is looking for its own advantage. Similarly, BRICS, which was featured as an alternative to Western alliance, to G7, to NATO, is anything but a strong alliance. It's no more than a club where the only major achievement is the creation of alternative method of payment bypassing SWIFT, and plans for even more diverse and alternative methods of payment for the future. But in fact, India is pursuing its own interest by concluding various trade deals with the United States, and two of BRICS members, Iran and Arab Emirates, are at war. That shows multipolarity at its best. Neither NATO, no G7, no BRICS, no Russia-China axis of alliance does not work at full length as was expected. So multipolarity appears to be having signs of fragmentation of existing alliances and multifaceted nature of the relationship between major great powers. But all of that needs to be taken into account when we try to define this new historical reality when power is shifting to the east, and China becomes a dominant power in many of these facets. Thank you very much, and I'll be back very shortly with another edition of Issues of Contemporary Politics with Dr. Brovkin. And please read my book From Lenin to Putin. Goodbye.